The UDRcast is not affiliated and does not represent any 12-step fellowship. I, Bill Ward, the host of the UDRcast, will be sharing my experience and my journey of recovery. That does include, but is not limited to, the literature contained in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 Steps. Our guests will be sharing their own path to recovery and what has worked for them. The UDRcast encourages and supports all paths to recovery. Welcome everybody to the UDRcast. UDR stands for Uncover, Discover, and Recover. My name is Bill Ward, and I'm coming to you from the recovery capital of Canada, Calgary, Alberta. Here we are going to discuss everything recovery, different perspectives, different experiences, both with the people I know and with others from around the world. If you resonate with anything you've heard on this episode today, we ask that you share it with anyone who you think may benefit from it. If you have any questions or comments, please find us at BILLWARDLIFE and send us a message in the info section. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. If you are interested in more recovery content, you can find the buttons for the YouTube channel and other social media outlets on the homepage, and you will be redirected to those platforms. We can recover, one person, one family, one community at a time. Yeah, and society ideologies do change. And, regardless of what the ideology is, if it's based in fear, it's going to do you harm, right? If it's based in fear, it doesn't give you energy, it takes energy away from you. And like some of the ideas we think are good ideas, right? But they're not really who says they're good. Just because society says it's good, does it actually mean that it's good for you? But then we spend our whole life trying to achieve these ideals. And are they actually good for us? From my experience as a sponsor, no. I'm not here to bash Christianity, but I've seen Christianity do more damage to fucking individuals as a sponsor than you can fucking imagine. The ego attaches to the belief systems within the religion, and it really does a lot of harm to the person. And because it's a religion and it's based in God and the ideal behind it is really good, but the ego's attachment to the ideals of it are not good. So the ego reasserts itself within the religion belief system. And then these guys have a hard time getting sober or staying sober, or having contentment in their life, because they think that they're turning it over to God, but it's actually the ego is attached to these belief systems. So what I've learned and had to try to do over the years is take them away from the belief systems of what that religion is and base it more in just the fundamental idea of love. And when they focus on love, not God, because God in the subconscious has a certain ideology within them that they can't really see, but when I switch it to love, now they're praying to something different. When they pray to God, they pray to something that hurts them. When they pray to love, they pray to something that helps them. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. Yeah? Because it's kind of complex, right? It gets kind of really, it's pretty deep shit. But that it's deep because I've done so much work in these areas and I've been able to see this stuff, right? On the surface, when you guys first start sponsoring, you won't see some of this stuff. This comes through a lot of time and trying to go, why? Why is this not working? Why is that not working? Why is this guy struggling with this at this many years? Why? And then after time, and then, I have Jesse, my buddy, we can compare the information and then we come up with some things and then we try different things and then it really works, or it doesn't. But typically it works pretty well when we make a change in what we're doing. So let's keep going. So we ascertain in a rough way what the trouble is. We have put a finger on the weak items in our personal inventory. Now these are about to be cast out. This requires action on our part, which when completed will mean that we have admitted to God, to ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our defects. This brings us to the 5th step in the program of recovery mentioned in the preceding chapter. So I want to talk about, step 5 is the exact nature of our wrongs. The word nature means origin of, okay? The origin of the defect, actually, here's the branch, that's the defect. The origin of that defect is actually in the root below the surface where you can't see it. So we're not really getting to the origin of the exact nature of our wrongs when we first do a set of steps. Getting to the exact nature of our wrongs, or our defects as it says here, takes time. And like I said about 15 minutes ago, focusing only on the 4th column in your recovery is going to not do you well over time. You need to focus on the 3rd column in the resentments and, that 4th column in the relationship conduct. Because that's where the roots are. And understanding where the roots go is the key to stop the branches from acting out. And again, the psychologists, the psychiatrists, the counselors, and the doctors, they just treat the symptom. They don't treat the root. And then the symptom always needs relief. So what's the symptom? Fucking sex relation. How do I treat that? With pornography. What do I get? I get relief. And then relief needs more relief. Or I treat it with another woman. Or sex addiction. And it needs more and more and more. Because there's never enough for the ego. Because it always needs to be fed energy constantly. Because it's never satisfied. And that can be gambling or whatever it is. Okay?
Eating disorders.
Pardon me?
Eating disorders.
Eating disorders. And that's one for women that is never really brought up, right? A lot of women have eating disorders. Bulimia, anorexia, overeating, and whatever else might be in there. And these are good conversations to have amongst women, right? Because these are things that actually kind of perpetuate the illness even more. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, we had this chat last night, but I was working with a woman recently that has a serious bulimia problem. And then I was like, well, when the spiritual maladies overcome, that will straighten out. And so we've worked heavily on the spiritual malady, and that has straightened itself out. And it's not been totally problematic for her anymore. But it's still a problem, and that's where, after her 12 steps are done, she's working a program. Now I would refer her to outside help. Okay? Go outside help. Get more information on this, right? Or maybe it gets solved with everything we're doing here. And the chances are that it will. But in reality, when we're not working this program and we're out in life, she's got a mental illness called bulimia. No, it's a spiritual fucking illness. A lot of the anxiety we suffer from isn't like, anxiety disorder and BPD or whatever. It's in the spiritual component, man. But our society only focuses on the mental health components. The spiritual health has to be fucking number one. Has to be. And when it is, then you can start deciphering what mental health components may need some extra attention. But you can't until you work really good on the spiritual components. Right? Okay. So we'll read for another 6 or 7 minutes. Does anyone have any questions on step 5? 4, 5, as we move on? So I'll touch base on another thing that is said here. Now these are about to be cast out. So we're looking at the weak items in our personal inventory. Now these are about to be cast out. So as we do the 5, we're looking for the damaged and unsaleable goods to discard them promptly without regret. So remember in the step 4, it talks about we're on a fact-finding, fact-facing mission. An effort to discover the truth about stock in trade. That's what we're doing. We're looking for the facts of our lives. We're going to face the facts, but we might not like facing the facts. You know, swallowing these big chunks of truth about ourselves is not fucking easy. So we look for the facts, we face the facts. We look at the truth about stock and trade. Not our fucking made up truth, the real fucking truth. And then one effort is to find these damaged and unsaleable goods and discard them promptly without regret. So we got to find out what they are. These defects that aren't serving us, the self-pity, the dishonesty, the morbid reflection, the lust that is based in insecurity, whatever it might be, and we try to cast it aside. And the only way to really cast it aside moving forward, because we can do this here, that's why it's God, someone else, and ourselves, because God's right there. Once this is done, we move into step 6. Step 6 is fucking massive. This is where we're really discarding these damaged and unsaleable goods. Where is step 6 worked? Anyone? Step 10. Step 10 is where step 6 is worked. How does it get worked? It gets worked in that process of analyzing our fucking defects. Selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. When they crop up, we ask God at once to remove it. We talk to somebody immediately, so when he's struggling, we can analyze the situation. And he's telling me everything. So I can look at the facts. I can help him face the facts. He might not want to face them because he's got his preconceived idea that this guy's fucking wrong. And then we look at the truth about stock and trade, and I'm like, fucking acting in a lot of fucking self-pity right here. And you're self-seeking, and you're living in fucking resentment. And he's like, fuck. He's like, you're right. Or he comes to that conclusion on his own, actually, as he's telling me shit. That's usually what happens, a lot of the time. You come to your own conclusion because you're willing to see your own bullshit at this point. And then we make amends quickly if we have harmed anyone. Well, he probably didn't harm anyone yet because he made the initial steps to mitigate that. And then he fucking comes to me. He doesn't have to make an amend. And then we resolutely turn our thoughts to someone we can help. So as he resolutely turns his thoughts in a deep and meaningful, purposeful sense, he starts praying for somebody else. That is a key component to this whole process. By not finishing off that process with a deep and meaningful prayer about somebody else, it doesn't give the first bit of the step the weight that it needs. So it's all just as important as each other. And that is exactly what happens when he calls me. I call him out on his shit. And then what happens is he's directed to God. Again, more God, more God, more God. So I'll say it like this. Faith alone is insufficient. The idea of faith is insufficient. To be vital, to give him life, must be accompanied by self-sacrifice and unselfish constructive action. The self-sacrifice that happened in the act when he called me. He called me, we identified self, he sacrificed self in that moment, and he gets closer to God. Through that action, he becomes more constructive use to God because he's removed self. So, faith alone, the idea of God alone is insufficient. To be vital, to give him life, must be accompanied by self-sacrifice. Understanding self, sacrificing self in the moment takes you to the unselfish constructive action. And everyone thinks that self-sacrifice means just stop going to help somebody. No, it means understanding self in that step 10, asking God to remove it, talking to somebody immediately, making your amends quickly if you've harmed anyone, and then resolutely turning your thoughts selflessly for 30 to 50 seconds to somebody else. And then we commence to outgrow fear. And we commence to grab a tighter relationship with God. Like a real one, because that's where you just turned your will and your life over. That's where it happens, right there. It doesn't happen because you guess. This isn't a guessing game. It happened right there when he made the call and we discussed it over the phone, and then he took those actions. Then he turned his will and his life over. But what happens is, well, he might not get what he wants. He might not get what he wants, but he followed the process and he did God's will, and what happened? The principles are the results. The principles don't need to be forced and self-willed and practiced in your affairs. You follow the step 10 process, there's the results. What happened? Your channel's clear. You can lay your head on the pillow at night. You do a nightly step 11 inventory. There's nothing fucking there. Now step 11 becomes power step. Because you're fucking clear and you can really pull on more power. That intuitive thought and extravagant energy fucking really come to you. And as you follow this as a discipline, because step 10 is a fucking perseverance step. It's a discipline step. Perseverance means fighting through the defect, fighting through with God. Build with me, do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self. Take away my difficulties. That's what step 10 is doing, all those things. So that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help with thy power, thy love, thy way of life. Through that process, you can access God way better in step 11. Through the step in 10 and 11, you fucking want to be of service. The unselfish constructive action. Because step 10 and 11 have allowed you to self-sacrifice. And then those 3 steps working together, you're in the 4th dimension and it has become a working part of your mind. You come to rely upon it. You go through your day. You're getting intuitive thought and action. It's all based in love. You're not struggling, trying to arrange life foolishly to suit yourself. And fucking life becomes a fucking cakewalk. And then all those things that have happened to you don't happen to you. They happen for you. And you're like, holy fuck, there's another lesson. There's another lesson. Woo! Right?
That's actually my favorite part of this book too. In this favorite is we relax, take it easy, we don't struggle.
Right. Because you're not burning up energy foolishly trying to arrange life to suit yourself to make you happy. Like this level of surrender doesn't come easy. But it comes if you follow the directions. And the other thing about step 10 is it's a discipline step. Right? Who wants to fucking do that shit all the time?
Yeah.
And why that's a discipline step and why it's a heavy component of step 6. When you first start doing that step 10, it's mostly step 6. Because you're fighting through the defects, right? Any person capable of enough willingness and honesty. Willingness to do it, to be aware and then do something about it. Honesty, rigorous honesty, to try repeatedly over and over and over step 6 on all his faults, not some of them. Without reservation. Has indeed come a long way spiritually. That's where you grow closer to God. And step 10 is heavy in the step 6 when you first do it. But then it changes and it becomes mostly step 7. Because step 7 is the attitude. Step 7 is surrender to God. Step 6 and 7 are way different steps. They're not the same. One is fucking learning God's will through pain and trying. The other one is I've surrendered and I have a desire to seek and do God's will. That's when step 10 becomes a working part of your mind. But at first, you got to practice it in the 6th component, but it's actually done in 10. Thank you for tuning in to the UDRcast. We hope you have enjoyed this episode. The viewpoints and the opinions expressed today were solely of the individual sharing them. If you resonated with this episode, please follow us and share this link with anyone that may benefit from it. Please visit us at BILLWARDLIFE to see everything that we have going on. We can recover, one person, one family, one community at a time.